Okay, well, hello everybody. Welcome to our new episode of our show, Tawheed, the spiritual unity of the three principles. Today, we have our first guest, Christine Heath. She is board member of the 3PGC and executive director of Hawaii Counseling and Education Center. And our topic today is about diversity initiative in the 3P community. And my take on the first time I've heard about this topic and was brought to my attention is when I listened to Christine Heath and Leila Turner in one of the talks talking about diversity project. And I thought it was so interesting because I haven't seen it from this perspective before. And I also realized that most of the three principles community, we don't have people from all backgrounds with different skin colors, black people, brown people. And this is of a paramount importance in terms of diversity. Because if we are talking about something that is always true and bringing everyone together, experiencing life through these three principles, it should be uniting us, with different people from all backgrounds, all religions, no exceptions. And I think this is one of the things that attracted people to our group, especially the non-Muslims, is because we had a different flavor to it and we brought Muslim people to the group. And the first word of the Facebook group, Tawheed, means unity in Arabic, spiritual unity. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'll give it over to Harry for now.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. The topic is a dear topic to me because primarily I have worked with poor people, people of different cultures, and I have been quite strongly opposed to some of the movement I've seen in the 3P over the years. I've said it as quietly as I can, but I really believe that the flavor and the energy of 3P come from this mixture rather than one singular homogeneous crowd. And they bring in a spiritual flavor that is sometimes missing in 3P, even though Christine may say yes or no. For me, it has been like that. And in the original thrust after Salt Spring, and Christine will maybe talk a little about it, Dr. Roger Mills was instrumental in working with the poor groups in Modelo and different things, Black and Hispanic people, women, and Sid was very much into that. And the initial thrust, there was a tremendous amount of diversity in the three principle movement. And George took it out into a certain area, and Roger took it out into the area of community development. And in that community development, he worked with, Modelo was sort of documented as one of the worst ghettos in the world type of thing. And the people came out of that. They were so inspiring to the rest of us. In fact, the truth was when I met the Black women from Modelo, it gave me the inspiration that I could do the same thing with the indigenous people. And I said, if he can do it there, I can do it there. And this collective movement between the community development and the diversity and the other thrust was very healthy. And Sid always had as documented by Dave Banks, a soft spot for poor people because he came from that background. He was an orphan, he was poor, and he came to Canada without any money, etc. He was homeless for a little while. And so this feeling was very healthy. And then Sid moved on, Roger's influence dwindled, and then we saw where it has moved to now. I'm not unopposed to what's happened. I just now, and in that time period, we had a correction mode, and that was Sid would say, no, you're missing the boat. No, you're missing the boat here. No, you're missing the boat. And then now, with him gone, of course, that is gone. And it looks like 3PGC, and I would say headed by Christine, has seen that they've had a bit of a blind spot with regards to diversity. So with that in mind, Christine, and so on, you talk whatever you want, of course. Go ahead.
Well, this is kind of it's a huge thing for me right now. For years, I mean, I've been on the 3PGC board since its inception, and over the years, I've been kind of a very weak proponent of getting more diverse voices on the board and in the whole community. But what I kind of woke up to this year with this whole Black Lives Matter thing, and me really listening to people and listening and being more present, was that I realized that I gave up and I gave in. You know, like there's some thoughts that we have in the principles community that are like spiritual slogans, I would say. And it's kind of like, well, all people are the same, so why would we need to focus on diversity? Why would that be something that's important and necessary? And so then instead of saying, like, stepping up and saying, okay, well, this is why we need to do it, I would get intimidated and insecure, thinking, well, people will think I'm not high enough, or I don't want to be a troublemaker. Because that's usually my rap anyway, is that I'm a troublemaker. And so I don't want to be a troublemaker. I don't want to cause, problems for people. And so I just kind of give up on it. And then I'd bring it up again, something would happen. And so what happened for me is I really woke up to my own insecurity that was getting in the way of my trying to make some inroads into our community. Because over time, I disagree with Harry a little bit. I don't know how diverse it ever was, to be honest with you. It came out in a pretty white community. It was pretty white male dominated in the beginning. And Roger was the proponent of people who were economically or sociologically disadvantaged. But I think in all that we did, then we, there's a way that it was still them and us, if you know what I mean. It was like, these people need our help. These poor people need our help. These people that are struggling need our help, rather than we are all the same here. So we would have these conferences, and people from Modelo would come, and people would be so touched by the simplicity of their message and the feeling that they came from. And when Roger died, he stopped kind of figuring out ways of funding people to come. And so all of a sudden, everything became very white, is that no longer was focusing on really bringing that community in. And so people would say things like, gosh, we really miss those people from the community project. So in my mind, like, community work is like code word for working with people of color. And so it's like this community or that community. And so we said, we really miss these people, and where are they? And then what I saw for myself now is that, gosh, we should have been saying, we should be learning from them. Like, they're bringing this feeling, and we miss that feeling, but no one was saying, like, oh, wow, we should be having this kind of feeling. You understand what I mean? It is like very subtle in our thinking. So to me, what I've been going through, and I believe me, I'm not an expert on diversity. I got white privilege in my mind as well as anybody else. Okay, so I hope you don't think I'm coming across as an expert on diversity, but I can just tell you what I'm seeing and the effect that it's had on me. And that to me has been one of the most wonderful things in the world, really. And it's just enlightening to me to almost wake up to the principles again, to see it all brand new again, to see how thought works. Because really, I had thinking I had no clue I had. I was mortified I had that clue, that thinking, I have to tell you. It was like getting kicked in the gut to see that. And then I was like, okay, so now I got to change. I got to do something different now that I can see this in myself. Because if it's in me, it's likely in most of us. And that's probably the core problem that we're up against here. So I talked to Leela Turner, and she was also feeling a similar push to try to see something different for herself. And as a result of that, we decided we would do this listening project for 3PGC, because we needed to get information about how people were experiencing the principles, the training from the principles, the experience of kind of conferences, and the way that they felt like they were being treated within the community. And so we just went on a really, and we're still in the middle of it. We just did another group on Wednesday, but we really just in this process of really listening to how it comes across on the other side, how it comes across to people, and how people have felt a lack of passion, I would say, a lack of compassion, a lack of connectedness within the community. So given that that's what we do, like that was pretty hard to hear. It was a pretty emotional thing for me. Still is, actually. And so in doing this, it's kind of interesting, because I realized how much conditioned thinking I was still operating from. You know, how much I had thinking about things. Now, I'm married to a Hawaiian. I live in Hawaii, where I'm in the minority as a white person. I figure I know more about this than most people, right? I was pretty darn cocky about it. But the truth is that what I saw may have been more than other people, but it still wasn't nearly where it needs to be. It's still not where it needs to be. But that's, to me, the fun of it, because now I'm freed up to get rid of that thinking that I'm carrying around without realizing it. And it's been such a, it's been interesting, because we've been doing these listening groups with people from different communities in the Three Principles community. So the people that came into the work, and then dropped away because they felt like they were not treated very well. There are people that have stuck with it, have been with it, but have had really kind of some very I'm trying to think of the right word, but experiences where they were treated differently. And people that are just new to the principles. So it was a combination of people. So the common denominator so far, anyway, that we've kind of gotten from people is that when we get in our head too much when we're teaching the principles, and we start talking from slogans, or we start to make comments about things like the past is just a thought, which is true. The past is a thought. But when you say it like that, what the person feels is that you're discounting their experience and kind of the place that they've been living without connecting with them at that level. And you just can't do that. I mean, to me, it's like, I'm a therapist, right? So I work with people who are physically and sexually abused all the time. The last thing I do is to talk to a rape victim and say, oh my gosh, well, that's just a thought you're having now. Because there's a way that when that is said like that, it discounts the person's experience. And really, we got to connect on a level of heart to heart. We have to connect with people as human beings, and whatever their experience is, because that way they can start to see how to get out of that, the trauma from that, the experience of that they're walking around in. But when it's still happening in the moment, that it's also very disconcerting for people. It's like, okay, well, I'm afraid to leave my house now because I might get arrested when I leave the house. So that sounds like a whole different thing than because they're living in this reality where those kinds of things can happen. So in the thing that I loved about this, the thing that's the most powerful, I think, is that when people were sharing their experiences and we were listening, number one, that's the first time anybody ever did that. Like one of the people said, like, nobody's ever said to me, gosh, life is crappy for people who are Black. You know, like it's been a crappy world for you. Like nobody ever even acknowledged that. And it's beautiful because every single person said, but the principles are really important to me, and I can see how that's true for everybody. And so the power of the principles is still keeping people kind of hanging in there in spite of our personal blind spots. Because to me, it's just like seeing the power of blind spots, and also being open to continually going deeper, so that you're looking to see how you see things differently rather than how we're seeing things as the same for each one of us.
One of the things, Christine, that I noticed by bringing up the topic, see, this is quite a step for 3P, because 3P is lily white. Oh, everything is beautiful. Don't criticize anything. That's the image of it a lot of people have. Don't be honest about what you think. And now they brought up something where they haven't been so perfect, and like all of us. And so I mentioned, so I suggested a lady from Greenland, Ivalo, go to the meeting, and Christina did, and it woke something up in her. You see, it's not only just us learning to share, it's waking up the feeling in her. So she contacted me. I had made a statement in my mind that I was going to, when I talked at 3PGC, I would talk about the indigenous world, which I refuse to talk about 99% of the time because the people aren't open to it. But I decided, this time I'm going to do it, just because I felt like it. And I did it, and it opened up something in her. And then she said, let's do a talk where I'll talk about, she wanted to talk about her experience, which in her culture is a no-no. You keep that to yourself. But she wanted to express it out. And as she was expressing the feeling, I could relate from an indigenous perspective, not a 3P perspective, an indigenous perspective of what she was experiencing and so on. And that was very, very beautiful. And then from that, she did another talk with Dickon. And I love that process. She started there, and then and now she's coming out. She's learning how to share. And Christine, one of the things with Christine is she shared an awful lot over the years. She's very comfortable, but she didn't start that way. She had to learn to become comfortable in it. And so I feel that the waking up of the spirit of the diversity is also us allowing them to experience what they need to experience in the moment, type of thing. Does that make sense, Christine?
Well, yeah, I mean, I just think for most of us, it's just seeing how we can wake up to that. Because if we wake up to that, then what comes through us touches other people. I mean, that's the deal, is that the mind isn't like individual to anybody. So as we get out of the way and we talk about this and we listen to people, there's something that happens where people wake up, and different. Each group that we did was different. Well, at the end of one group, it was very melancholy. It was lots of people talking about, like one woman had a blog and got a lot of negative feedback from other people in the Three Principles community about her diversity blog. I was like, what? You know, and one group was like, came in very pessimistic, like, oh, you know, this is just another, you guys are getting excited about this and then you'll forget about us in 6 months and that'll be it. And as they taught, there was a couple of new people on the call, and they were talking about how much they'd just discovered this and they were waking up to it. And you could see everybody kind of wake up again, like, oh yeah, there is something here deeper than these people that are trying to teach it or trying to share it. You know, it's kind of like seeing that the message is more than any individual. And the other thing, Harry, that I just think that I just don't, I don't want to be negative about what anybody else has done or hasn't done in the past, because whatever we did, whatever we saw to do, is the best we could see. I mean, if I could have seen to be more inclusive and more open and stronger, I would have done that, but I didn't, you know. So it's, to me, it's like, we just gotta really come forward, because that power of love and acceptance comes, it's very fragile yet in the world, because the level of consciousness is still so low that we easily contaminate that feeling of love for each other. And where we're at now is just where we're at now, you know, and this is where we kind of have to go from here, because whatever we've done in the past to get in the way, we need to clean that up. Like Sid told me once, he had a bunch of us meeting in Florida and Miami, and went down and we were sitting under this monkey pod tree, and he was talking to us. It was a beautiful day in the 80s in Florida, and we were sitting there and the breeze was coming through, and he looked at us and he said, whatever issues you had in your life before you learned the principles, clean it up, get rid of it, and then move forward and live in a beautiful feeling. And that, to me, that's what this is. This whole diversity thing is, to me, it's like, we've got to clean this up. This is a mess it's kind of like we've been littering through life, and we didn't see that littering. Like, do you remember, I don't know if you guys probably aren't old enough, most of you, but back in the day, in the 60s, people were driving in cars more, and you would get in the car and like take a piece of gum out of a wrapper and take the wrapper and throw it out the window. And like there was this big mother out there that was going to come and clean up the trash. You know, like if you threw it out somehow, it would get picked up. And to me, it's like we've just been littering all over the place without realizing it, because we all have our thoughts. You know, I grew up in a very white community where people were differentiated based on their religion. So you were either Protestant or you were Catholic. And, you know, they had two separate cemeteries, and you couldn't date Catholic boys because you might marry them, and then you'd have to be a Catholic, and the Catholics weren't allowed to date the Protestants because they'd, you know, live in hell then because they'd marry somebody out of the faith. It was crazy. But it's just the way that human beings think when at that level of consciousness, is we're looking at how we're different and what's wrong with the other person. You know, like what's going on with the other person that they would, because they're different, right? They're just different from us. So it's kind of seeing that the more we kind of, to me, it's like recognizing that we have differences without caring about it. You know, it's kind of like, yeah, we see things differently. Like one of the things that people tend to say in this discussion, white people tend to say, is that I don't see color. Well, that's ridiculous. Everybody sees color. It's not a bad thing to see color. It's a bad thing to judge color. You know, it's like if you think that because somebody's a certain color of their skin, that means something about them that's different from you, that's where that conditioned thinking comes in, and we start to get a judgment about that. But we just have to see that we are all different, and there's beautiful things in that. It's like there's nothing wrong with that difference. It means that there's more beyond that, that there's a way of connecting at a deeper level where the same, and appreciating the fact that we're different.
I think Yael got a question. Would you like to unmute yourself, Yael?
Um, I don't know if it's a question, but you know, I grew up, you know, I live in white skin, you know, this is how I was born. And my neighbors, my almost the only neighbors I had were African in Jerusalem. So I guess I was blind because we didn't see any different. I didn't see them as different. They were my only friends. They were, you know, practically my siblings. And I was a very big part of their family. And because I grew up in such a, you know, a way like religious, and I feel like I was very underprivileged. So I felt very connected to different communities. When I moved and lived in the United States, I felt more a part of the African and Spanish communities because I felt, you know, like I was lower than everyone else. And for a really long time, and this understanding really helped me see that we're really no different, but maybe I was still blind because, you know, today I have a African nephew, and everyone's, you know, saying all these things, oh, because he's African, so he has a certain, you know, amount of you know, intelligence and all these things. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not true. But I wasn't seeing, I don't think I was seeing, because I was seeing him as, you know, like everyone else, I wasn't seeing the problems that he's having. Like, to me, his problems weren't because his skin, it was because his upbringing. But maybe I'm still blind in a way that I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting to live in Jerusalem and being, you know, a Jew. That I don't think I ever lived as like a Jew in Jerusalem. I had Arab neighbors and I have Arab friends, and I still have friends that I meet them every once in a while on the street, and I say, "How you doing?" And he said, "I'm still an Arab." And once I asked him, because he keeps on saying that, and I asked him, so, and what's the problem? He's like, I want to be a Jew. I'm like, do you really want to be a Jew? He says, no, I want to be accepted. I want to be able to do all the things that Jews do. And it's, you know, this understanding is kind of, it's very hard to get indoors in Israel, because I think that myself and maybe two more people, you know, people don't like to use the words three principles. I don't know why. But for me, I feel that it's right. And it's like, I'm one person in this big country that speaks to many other people, but maybe there's still something that I don't see. Maybe because I see it as we're really all the same, I'm not sensitive enough to what other people are feeling, because that's how they grew up. Like, this is my skin. People could look at me and say, oh yeah, your parents are American, you're rich, you know, you have everything you need, even though that's not true. That's not how I grew up, and it's not where I live. So that's one part. But there's another part that I do feel that in the Three Principles community, I was done wrong because choices I made in my life. You know, learning this understanding, being supported by a certain community. And I kind of feel I was expected to become a Jew, you know, to become, you know, that if I understand this understanding, I would go back to my roots. And there's still something that's not closed there.
That's why
But it's there.
diversity is so good, y'all, is because it's something. When I was talking to the Inuit people, identity is always a big issue. That's a human issue, and we have to, every person has to go through that. The white people who, so on, I hate that word, by the way, they don't, but anybody who comes from a different flavor has an identity issue that they have to come up with. And I feel that in the Muslim community as well. And certainly in the indigenous communities, it's an issue. How do you see that, Omar, with the Muslims and 3P?
Actually, I was reflecting on that because when I was in London, I was in a Sufi community, and the Sufi community was kind of what the three principles is about. You know, it really matches what the three principles about. But when this topic of diversity was brought to my attention, I've noticed that when I used to go to the Sufi community to read poems, to just it's basically, it's like, you know, Rumi's quote, it's all about love, and that we are that, and Sufi community is part of you know, it's part of Muslims, so it's all about magnifying God. What I've noticed is that there were like people from all around the world, different skin colors. So I think that that's what actually is missing in the 3P community. When I was thinking about that, I've noticed that when I go to this weekly meetup, I meet people from all around the world. You know, Black people as well as white people, and we're all together one. You know, no separation, no separation. Yeah, I think we should talk more about. It's really good that we are talking about diversity and bring it to life in the 3P community. And
Well, what does the
I would love to have a guest.
What
Yeah.
does the community bring? Like, what does the community, the 3P community need? Like when I was with the Spanish people, they said, the 3P needs some more salsa, you know, and they do. They're a pretty dry toast crowd, you know, no offense, but yeah,
True. Get so serious. You know, you got to be, it's like solemn. You have to be in this spiritual place.
You and I, and Christine and I are exactly the opposite of that. You know, if you hang around with Christine, she's not solemn at all. She's a character, and I'm a bigger character. You know, but primarily it's a dry toast, and you know, it needs a little salsa, it needs a little spirituality spoken from a Muslim perspective. I hope you understand something. I know zero about Muslim, but boy, is it fun to be exposed to it. It's really like it's taking me in a whole different feeling. And I love it. I love it. I don't know anything about it, but I love where it and it's not, it's mind. Oh, mind. Oh, God, you know, all mind is Sid defined it very clearly in 1978 when the first meeting at Cedar Beach is. He said, all mind is a psychological word for God or Allah. And then I found out, oh, my Muslim friend Heath said, you pronounce it wrong. Well, of course I pronounce it wrong. You know, and he's laughing and all this stuff type of thing. Yeah. That's part of us coming together. You like, we gotta, go ahead.
If Spanish needs more salsa, I think we need more, you know, words like Allah in the 3P community. And not only that, but I guess that, you know, keeping it simple and pure is what makes me closer to my religion and to the truth, you know? So I think that the three principles needs to be pure, as uncovered by Sid Banks. And the more we play, because I fall into that trap at the beginning. I was so confused, and my confusion didn't come from the three principles. It came from what I was reading and what I was watching. So it's kind of, you know, the more I have in my head, the more I don't see it right. I don't see it clear. I need less thinking in my mind to be connected to the infinite intelligence. And the more I'm connected with the infinite intelligence and not just speaking it and speaking about it, because speaking about it is another thing and being in that space is completely different. The more we can be united, and we will have diverse group, for sure, like more people from you know, from like Black people or Muslim people, more Jewish people, and I see less Muslim people in the 3P community, and that's one of the reasons why we created this group, me and Harry, to kind of keep it simple, pure, and diverse. That was the main purpose of the group.
Can I, is it okay for me to go back to Yael? Because I think
Yeah, sure.
that,
Oh, sure. Go ahead. Have fun.
because this is the thing. It is like, I just want to tell you to know that, I mean, we've been around the principles probably longer than you've been alive. And we still have blind spots. So whatever teachers you've had, whatever things have happened to you, you have to trust yourself. You have to go with what feels right for yourself. You know, like people, everybody has their own thing. Like I don't do religion at all. You know, like I just don't do religion, but it doesn't mean I'm not spiritual, right? So whatever teachers you have, they're going to have their own blind spots. I have my own blind spot. You know, you talk to me, you come to my training, I'm going to have my own blind spot about this. If I could see it, I wouldn't have it. But given that I can't see it, it's going to be a blind spot. So people will get into their own beliefs about things, right? And that just tells you the level of consciousness that we're all at. You know, if we were at a higher level of consciousness, we wouldn't think that way. You know, we'd be more open, we'd be more, like, you know, in the old days, we wouldn't talk about spiritual at all because people, and when we first started talking about this, thought it was a cult. And so we thought if we talked about it as spiritual, that people would think it was a cult, and then it would get in the way. So, you know, as we've gone along, we've done the best we could to kind of interface with the world. So to me, it's like you just have to really listen to what feels true for you. And that has nothing to do with any form you create. It doesn't have anything to do with your religion or your culture or anything else. That's all before that. So if you're true with yourself and you do what feels right for you, I say get a good feeling about it and go for it. Because it's about that feeling. It's about the feeling of aliveness, of awakeness. Like, to me, that's what I see in this is like literally like I woke up again to the principles, seeing my own blind spots, seeing my own thinking that I had about things, seeing how it was coming across to people. Like even that, you know, like frequently I talk about living in a beautiful feeling, getting a beautiful feeling. Well, for somebody who's, you know, in the middle of hell, that might not sound like a good idea. And I realized that mental well-being doesn't always mean it comes across in a beautiful feeling. It comes across in a deep feeling, a feeling of a profound feeling, a feeling of inner security. So you go for that, and that will guide you. The rest of it doesn't matter, to be honest with you. In another 100 years, they'll look back at us and say, those crazy people are talking about diversity. How could they be so stupid to think that people were different? You know, maybe not 100, maybe less than that, but you know, you never know. You understand what I mean? It's kind of like as we evolve as a species, we awaken to things. And when you awaken to things, then everything that you do changes from that. But everybody that you meet is going to be at a different level of consciousness. I mean, there are people teaching the principles that are very intellectual, you know, like they're very, it's about thought, like you're feeling your thoughts, you're feeling your thoughts, you're feeling, and I'm not saying that everybody that teaches that is intellectual, but I don't want to get in political trouble here, but you can hear it. Like for me, I've been doing this a long time, so I listen to people, I can hear the slogans. And that has been in the past when we have all gotten in our head about the principles. And you can create a little form in your head about the principles. Like, oh, I know what the principles, they are da 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 da. And, oh, that's the past. Oh, now I'm in a bad mood. Oh, now I'm having a bad feeling about this. I got to do something. Oh, I've got to quiet down. It's just all thoughts, right? Because all that happens naturally when you touch that deeper feeling, that deeper essence of you. And then you go live your life. There's no right or wrong way. Yeah. None of us know what the heck we're doing, to be honest with you. Yeah. I always thought that poor Sid was like, he probably talking to us was like talking to schizophrenics for me. You know, it was like, you know, the poor guy, he had to like come down so we could even understand what he was saying. You know, and then, so what happens is frequently people learn this, me included, I'm not saying anybody else but me, but we get into a place and we kind of get off on that level of consciousness and we kind of camp out, we move in. And then once you move in, it's like somehow that you get into your thinking again and boom, it's the same thinking, it's always there, right? It's like you move into that thinking again and you lose the aliveness. Like to me, that's that feeling of life is alive and it's beautiful and it's fun and it's painful and it's, you know, it's everything. It's all of that.
Yeah.
And like even this, you know, pandemic, you know, like my husband is older than I am and I'm ancient. And he's got every risk factor there is in the world. So if he gets the virus, he'll probably die. And so I just like got totally freaked out by that. You know, I totally got, it was almost like this wave of the Black Plague was coming towards me from the mainland. And I was like watching the news all the time. And I was like, all of a sudden I was like, oh, I have anxiety. I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it, you know? And so I said, okay, got to stop watching the news. You got to exercise. You know, I did everything I had to do. And then I started to kind of laugh at myself like, okay. And my husband, of course, he was insecure about it too. And I said, look, honey, if we never leave the farm, we'll never get it. It's not like something that you can get through, you know, the airwaves, at least not this far away. And he was like, yeah, okay, I guess. I said, now, this may be the end of our life that we live here on the farm by ourselves, but gosh, how lucky are we that we've created this reality where this is where we can be safe and let's just focus on that. But, you know, at first I got caught up in it. So we all get caught up in things, right? And when our ego gets attached to being pretty smart about things, it's easier. Like when you think like, well, I know what the principles are, or I studied with Sid Banks. That's a good one, let me tell you. Like somehow that like makes you special. It doesn't. You know, it's just, gosh, I'm pretty darn lucky that I did. But, you know, one of the last times I talked to him, he was screaming at me. I was out to lunch for whatever reason. And he was screaming at me saying, you don't know what the 3 principles are. And I was like, okay, do you want me to stop teaching? No. And I'll tell you, that was a great lesson because I just that his voice in my head's always there. I don't know the 3 principles. We never know the 3 principles because whatever it is we're thinking, that's not it. That's just our best shot, given the state of mind we're in, given the place that we're in. So have fun with it. Be yourself. Anybody tells you got to be a certain way or this is going to happen or that's going to happen, they don't know. They're making it up.
I'd like to add something here, just a sec. The alive feeling that Christine is talking about is obviously the essence of the three principles, that it has to be alive in you and you have to be living that. But there's another side to the story, in my opinion. And it happened with addiction, alcoholism, the three principles. I saw there was a big hole in the 3P, obviously. And to our surprise, it was a big wave. Didn't expect it, neither Greg nor I. But then that there was a community. See, addiction was a community, that was a topic that everybody was into. Indians, nothing. Addiction, wow. And then that community was there, lifted what we were able to offer. So the community growing in understanding is also opening up to that the energy is coming outside of the status quo crowd of people, but we need the status quo crowd. And so when I had an idea, I said, oh, I want to talk about what's on the mind of those who are addicted. And that's basically what I want to talk about on this show, what's on the mind of those who are Muslim. And I said, and then Christine volunteered to do the 3 shows on that. That took the energy into a whole different dimension. So we need the community to be open, as well as understanding that a lot of the sparks will not come from the same old people. It's new people that are the creation of the 3 principles. Christine, as she mentioned, Harry is as obvious, we're older. We're not going to be here that long, you know. And we have lots of laughs and all that, but the idea is the union of the collective that has the power with the individual sparks, the mavericks, the different energies that take it in a new direction. Mm-hmm. To me, that's what diversity is about.
I think
power. Go ahead.
I just think that's one of the reasons I'm still working, is because there is nothing better than someone awakening to the principles and knowing it has nothing to do with you. You know, like when someone, like I love it when people like find stuff online and they totally wake up and they didn't talk to anybody. You know, like that's it's kind of like, you know, like when you're planting things, it's like one shoot comes up here and then it comes up over here and it comes up over there, but there's nothing better for me. I get this great feeling when somebody else wakes up to it. And I know it has nothing to do with me, because if it had something to do with me, I would have changed the world already. I'd be, you know, like we wouldn't be in this situation that we're in. But I can only do me, and I'm just grateful when new people come in and they wake up to that feeling, because that's the truth. I mean, when we just woke up to that feeling, we had nothing. We had no books. We had no teachers. We had no courses to take.
But we had Sydney Banks.
We had Sydney Banks, but even that, I mean, I didn't met Sydney Banks when I first came across the principles. It was a couple of months before I met him, and something happened in me. You know, it's like just by me listening, I woke up. Something happened to me because I knew I didn't do it. I wasn't wanting it. I just wanted to go to dinner with Roger Mills. You know, it was like not something I was really looking for. And so, I mean, that's, to me, because that happened to me, I know that it can happen to anybody. And my mother told me this. My mother, you know how your mother's always your best mirror. She said, honey, you tell your clients that if this can work for you, it can work for anybody. You know, so it was an amazing thing, but I know that it wasn't about me. And I know that when somebody else wakes up, it's not about me. And when they don't wake up, it's not about me. And it's just recognizing that the more we stay like listening and open and seeing how to like go deeper in ourselves, the more we'll impact other people in a way that's more positive. Like the kind of waking up to this whole diversity thing, like one of the things that somebody was talking about was that, you know, we had this innate health conference in London, and they said how intimidating it was to walk into a room of 1,000 people that were all white or almost all white. And I was listening to that. I was like, oh, but such a nice feeling. And then I went, wait a minute. If I walked into a room that had 1,000 young alpha male men in it, I would be very insecure. So I had to put it into my own world to kind of get, because I can't see it through their eyes, but I could see like what that would do for me. Like if I'd lived in a world where I had to worry about, because, you know, women, we grew up, we were taught to worry about men. Got to worry about them because they can do bad things to you. You got to, you know, make sure that you got your pepper spray in your hand if you're walking down the street somewhere. You got to do this because that's the level of consciousness of the world. So living in that, I had some inkling, like that's kind of how I started waking up to it, is I started just to see like, okay, I got to put myself in their shoes. What does it look like? And so, and I'm still doing that. I'm still like, this is like the most exciting thing in the world, to really listen to the experience of other people and then not know where it's going. So we've done these small groups, and we're going to have the big group where everybody's getting together, because the other thing we've discovered is there's lots of people of different races that are teaching the principles that have a beautiful understanding, but they've been invisible. We haven't seen them. Okay. And so that's the next step, is for them to start to come forward, because it doesn't feel right as a white person for me to kind of come in and say, okay, now this is what we should do, because that's it. But I know for me, I've got my passion is to help people, white people, to see how they're missing out because of the thinking that they have about people. They're missing out. They're missing out on connecting with people. They're missing out on looking at the diversity of life, that way that other people see things, and being interested in that, and how that keeps you fresh and alert.
That's why we're having Mamoun Yosef in November. I have no idea that he was even teaching the three principles, written a book, and quite a popular book, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the idea. Let's uncover the jewels that are out there that will change, uplift us into a new way of seeing life. And as a collective community, as a community that respects diversity rather than singularity. And yes, 3P has a singular flavor, and that hasn't been healthy. It has been strong in its direction, but it's strong enough now to let it go and move in a new direction, a direction where the whole world's a community, where Indians are as wise or wiser in certain ways than this or that, all of it. And the truth is, we're the ones who are going to get the greatest gift. Honestly, working with Omar is a treat, just a treat. You know, I can say all I want about who I am and what I have experienced, but it's just a treat. It takes me into a new world. Sabia, can you say something about what you're seeing?
Harry, sorry, I'd love to, but I'm putting my daughter to sleep.
Okay.
I think the best thing to say is, does anyone want to say anything or have something to share with us? Please unmute yourself.
I just would like to ask, I don't know, maybe now or maybe in a different time, you know, how, I don't speak Arabic yet. It's in my plans I'm starting to learn Arabic because I see how important it is. And if there's any way that I don't know, you can share with me, maybe in a different time of how to, I don't know how to get into the community. I'm sure it's in the same ways, but it's different. Maybe we can.
Yeah, meet up with Omar. Will be more than happy to share.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk after the show, and then we could do something.
It'd be fun for you to do something together, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be.
I have many
pleasure.
friends that are interested, and right now I don't have the language, so that's what's.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, let's talk after the show, and we could talk together. I think Christine wants to say something. Would you like to mute yourself?
I would, thank you. I would love to know how to get started, with helping out with this. I'm white and I'm, more than middle-aged, and I just kind of don't want to show up, just like what you guys were talking about at the beginning, like, I know everything, or I just don't even know how you get started. I haven't trained in any 3 principles coaching training or anything, but I've been very immersed in it, just constantly trying to stay with it, but I don't know where to get started.
Well, Christine, one of the things you could do is if you sign up as a member for 3PGC, hopefully what'll come out of this next meeting will be an initiative to kind of do different things in this work. So that would be one thing to kind of look out for.
Okay, because I didn't even know there was somewhere to sign up. I find your stuff on YouTube, so I didn't know 3PGC was a place to sign up, but I can definitely find that. So that's a great starting point.
Yeah, 3pgc.org. And
got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing, Christine, is coming into this group, share. Like the more you share, you could see y'all talk to Omar, and there's a relationship established.
Mm-hmm.
And that was fueled by Christine. You two should work together.
Mm-hmm.
And but if you one of the hardest things for people to understand is the days of listening to a guest, that's boring. You want to share. Everybody, the more sharing, the more the show is uplift. Our show is better because you shared, period. And then the second thing that happens, what Christine was alluding to, is all of a sudden, because you share, you ventured out of your comfort zone, you open up, oh, that wisdom is within, that alive feeling, that's the word she used, is within yourself. The more that comes alive, the more the spirit will provide you the answer to that question. You really, it's always spiritual. It's always spirit. Your spirit comes alive.
It makes so much sense, because I stay watching things all the time. You're right. I never share anything. I mean, I sometimes share it with people in my life, but you're right. I'm just an observer, really, and that's how I see myself. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And recognize this. I listened to myself on the addiction show at the beginning. Man, I was rough. No offense, but whoo, that wasn't, so we need practice, period. Oh, sorry, Omar, you go ahead now.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to Christine, the first time I shared when I just got into the 3 principles, like it was like 3 months or 4 months after that, I had my first, you can call it coaching, but it wasn't coaching, it was just a conversation with one of the ladies that I met randomly in a park. And I was just asking her, how can I get to Holland Park from the station? And she was going there as well. So we started talking, and she started, I told her what I was doing, and I was into coaching and this stuff, and I came across this understanding, and she was just listening, and she was intrigued. And I shared with her just my insights, what I understood, and she got a huge insight from that. That like she saw something much deeper than I did, that changed her life completely. Like she was bipolar, she was depressed, and she had mania. like she was depressed for 4 months according to her, and she like after a week she texted me and she told me, oh my god, I feel so happy, my heart is so open, I want to go to spend Easter with my family, I want to speak with my priest and tell him what's happened to me, oh my god, you're an amazing coach, you should do this in a park. And she started telling me, and I got insecure because I was like, what did I do? Like, like I haven't done anything. I was just sharing what I understood, you know? And she got something out of it. So I think as Harry said, sharing is really, it's really important. Like, you don't know what could come out of it. And the worst thing is people will get an insight. The best thing, people get an insight from it. And I read a comment someone posted in one of the groups about how to share when you're suffering, when you're going through, like the lady who was sharing this in her post, she said that she's a coach and she's helping people, and now she feel really bad, and she's like, it's not, you know, she can't do this, she can't coach if she doesn't feel good. And I was like, maybe you can share from your experience. I mean, this is the human experience. We all have ups and downs, and the human experience is about forgetting, and the spiritual experience is about remembering. And sharing from that space could do magic. Sharing from that, you know, rawness and that space you're in could do magic, because it happened to me. Not once, not twice, just sharing from that space, and people see something from themselves.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think
Thank you.
that's great, Omar. And to me, it's like the power of the feeling to touch people in spite of you. You know, like that woman got hit by something, but really had nothing to do with what you said or what you did. You know, I think sometimes people get so focused on how they're teaching or what they're saying or how they're doing it, and they lose that just being with people in the moment and seeing what comes through you. It's a great
And I lost that. I got confused because I was trying to figure out that it was, I said something, maybe I should say it more, you know, and I got caught up of, you know, what to say and what not to say. But when I look back at it now, I see that it wasn't me, it was her. It came from inside of her. She was ready to hear something new. And I'm still in touch with her. And it amazes me, like, how this the ripple effects of one insight could do for one person, from going to psychiatrists and taking medication, and like they were about to take her baby from her because they thought she's sick, she can't have her baby, to being calm and, you know, getting off medication and having her baby with her. That's beautiful. And what struck me is that when I met her last time, I met her in September last year, like this time. Sorry. And I asked her, like, what's different now? She told me, I don't remember the last time I felt stressed. I don't remember the last time I felt stressed. And my heart just was filled with love, you know, I got goosebumps, because what I hear most of the time is that I don't remember the last time I was happy. So yes, Christine, just keep sharing from whatever level you're in, just share.
Yeah, I can relate to that, Omar, in that when I came to the three principles, I was suffering enormously with anxiety, you know, and not just, I think, Christine, you mentioned this COVID crisis. I felt as if it had been, my body had become an amplifier of was amplifying the anxiety throughout the world. And I was really feeling it strongly. And and I had a couple of sessions with Bill, and suddenly, yeah, my anxiety levels dropped to just about zero. I will also share as well, for 27 years, my doctor had been prescribing me Prozac,
Oh,
and it's at the time, I'm old enough to know that at the time when he prescribed me it, it was called the New American Wonder Drug that would make everybody happy, you know. And I just get I kept getting that prescribed. And after the sessions with Bill and the beautiful feelings I would get just sitting in the garden, um, and not thinking and feeling and sensing the beauty of nature. Um, I had a thought, right, okay, I'll come off the Prozac as well. I'm going to stop. And I did look up on the internet, um, coming off Prozac, and it said, in no way come off Prozac unless you taper it, you know. And I had to call my doctor. He said, oh, no, you can't. You've got to taper yourself off it. And I thought, no, actually, I'm not. I'm just going to stop taking it. And that was 4 weeks ago. And I felt nothing but the happiness and the love every time I've come to these meetings. And when I've read the words from Sid, watched the links, and now I'm genuinely, it seems strange that, I'm 57 years old. I've reached this age to realize uh, this enormous, fantastic gift. And um, I don't, I can't regret what's gone because it's in the past. But boy, I'm really looking forward to whatever comes next, because I am really, really loving that I'm living in the 3Ps. So much so that I'm thinking of beginning. We have social media at work. I work for a corporate entity, which is which is a global corporate entity with about 50,000 employees, starting a 3P group within that corporate entity, just to say, hey, look, uh, here's something else. You know, if anybody, is troubled, I'm happy to share my story within this group, and post links to the book and the books, videos, anything, and start my community, my own community of 3P within the corporation that I work for. But yeah, it's been absolutely divine. Uh, the the uh, the change that has come over me since being introduced.
Mark, you bring up the reason why Christine is so excited about diversity. It's not just the acceptance of us as a community and being more inclusive. It's the reason why Sid wanted to share the 3 principles. It alleviates suffering, and anybody suffering, we all have suffered, and we've all had a level of healing that everybody deserves.
Yeah.
I think
Thank you for sharing this, Mark. I'm just aware of the time. Are you okay, Christine, to continue for 5 more minutes?
sure. I have all the time in the world. I don't go anywhere, so I don't have a client
Perfect.
until 10. So I've got
I guess we are lucky today.
Well, there's nothing more fun for me than to get with a group of people and talk about this. I mean, this is my thing in life, and I feel so grateful, and I get so much out of it myself. So it's totally selfish.
Yeah, so am I.
I love my
Okay.
dogs, but they're usually quite relaxed and loving, and so we don't have very deep conversations about the truth of life.
They love you, and they love you unconditionally.
They do love me to death. Thank God I have them, because they've been a great entertainment for me.
Pure love, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is a good place to wrap it up, Omar, and unless anyone has something else to add. And it's been
I'd love to ask a question, please, Harry. My daughter's just fallen asleep, so am I able to? Is that okay?
Sure.
Of
Go
course.
ahead, Savia.
Yeah, I could really relate to a lot of the context that the sharing that took place, and I was one of those people who I remember when I first came across the three principles, which is about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, something like that. No, 4 years ago. Yes, 4 years ago. And I walked into a conference, my first and the first time at the 3P, I walked into the conference, there was about 1,000 people there, and I was the only Asian person, the only Muslim person there. And so I can relate to that. And to this day, I still feel that as wonderful as the 3P community is, and I've had wonderful experience with everybody that I've come across. It's little. I feel this huge community out there that's missing out on this. So I'm so glad that this is taking place. And I think my question now is to Harry and Omar, as well as Christine. How do you see I know you're holding these monthly, or is it fortnightly calls, but how do you envisage taking this forward out into the world, to sort of engage them, to engage the Muslim community?
It's a great question, because I've asked that specific question to Omar directly, because of course the beauty is I don't have the answer to that, but I know that in today's world, bringing together different aspects of people with different talents and talent sets is the way to do a project. And so how we should really, I would love to have a talk with Omar, you and me, and talking specifically about that question, because we are trying to uncover that answer, and we don't have the answer yet, is the honest answer. But I would love, would you be into talking, the three of us? And
Yes.
Okay, well, that's...
Yes, I'd love to. I think I have 1 or 2 ideas. I'd love to share that.
That's what we need.
That's great, Savia. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll do that next week, Sabia. Yeah. You can do it with, we'll set up a time and we'll Zoom together.
Okay,
and
great.
I'll actually see your pretty face then.
Yes, sure.
All right.
Right now, I'm covered in decorations and fluff and balloons. It's my daughter's birthday tomorrow, so I've put her to bed, and now I have to decorate the whole house. I'm just so knackered already.
How nice.
That's great. Happy birthday.
It's hard work. It's nice for her to walk down the stairs and see the whole house lit up, but I'm exhausted.
And I just want to know one other thing that's very noticeable in what I can contribute is, since we stopped the Addiction, Alcoholism, and Three Principles webinar series, we've had 1,500 podcast downloads. Podcasts are very popular with certain groups of people, and we will be making this. I'm just going through, I need some time and stuff, but I'm setting up the podcast. So this show definitely will become a podcast and so on. And the reason podcasts are so popular is the young people like them, and it doesn't use a lot of data. So these shows you can't play on your cell phone, but podcasts you can. And the other thing is people seem to, for whatever reason. So it blows me away that just by putting out a few podcasts, so many people are exposed to the three principles in a unique topic. So that will be happening as well.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
I guess, Harry, what I'd like to say before I end is that if there are people that are listening to this, that, you know, come across this in whatever way and want to be involved in this in some way, to just shoot me an email, which is my name, christinejheath@gmail.com. And if you don't hear back from me, email me again, because I am sometimes not as good at that as I could be. But if you've got something to say in terms of your experience with the Three Principles community and you'd like to share that, and or be a part of the what comes out of this diversity meeting, I just think that the more we open up, the more people are appearing and the more beautiful it is. So I just want to let you know that that's all available to you. And we want to be as transparent as possible and as open as possible. And yeah, so let me know. And you can also do info@3pgc.org. We put out a statement, interesting, about diversity and kind of our own awakening as a board. And we're still in the middle of this, like it's a very white board. And we're in the process of changing that and making it different, but we had a summer break, so we're kind of slowly moving on it, but it's coming. And so we got a lot of feedback from people about that statement, and I was kind of expecting to have more backlash, really. And we only had one person who said 3BGC should not be political. And I just think that it's interesting that somebody would think this was a political discussion, but you know, it's a human discussion, and if that means that that's political, so be it.
And thanks, Christine, for bringing it up in the community. It was a much needed thought.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate that. So I know sometimes I have strong opinions and ideas, which I do, but don't think I don't respect the thrust that you've opened up. That I love without compare.
Mm-hmm. And thanks to Leela Turner, man, she's been a godsend. I've gotten to know her. I really didn't know her before this, and so we've become fast friends. And she's amazing with a beautiful awareness and passion for connecting with people. So she's got some great things out there too. But you know, there's some great things going to be coming out of this, I think, from people within all communities, and that's really what I'm hoping will happen.
Good. So let's wrap it up, Omar. It's enough.
Yeah.
Enough self-love and promotion.
Yeah. I was about to wrap it up before Christine was speaking, but I just realized I was muted. So yeah, I was about to ask you how we could find out about you, Christine, and you shared that. Thank you for coming and being our first guest into our show. Thank you very much. It's been an amazing conversation, and I guess we'd love to have you again and share more about this and find ways how to bring more awareness about diversity in the 3P community. And thank for all the attendees. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing your experiences, for your questions. And thanks to the amazing Harry for sharing his wisdom with us. So see you in 2 weeks' time.
Thanks for asking me. I had a great time. I really appreciate it.
Really too. Thank you.
Okay.
And sorry I was late. I was held up by work. But and belated birthday greetings, Harry. And I'm hoping one day you'll be able to sign this for me. I'll come across and I'll see you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look forward to
Yeah,
it.
happy birthday, Harry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lots of love.
29, almost 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, type of thing.
Aloha, as Christine say.
Aloha. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
And oh, y'all left already. Eh? Oh, I thought, okay. Well,